So in this video, I just want to make some brief comments about the last 3 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, which now have been recited. And that would be chapters 26, 27, and 28. And I will mention on chapter 28, it actually corresponds to chapter 26 of the Kern version that I recited from, specifically the Lotus of the True Law. And these summaries that I'm reading are, as you know by now, from the Leon Hurvitz translation, specifically from his preface. So Hurvitz says about chapter 26, more on the merit accruing to the person who extols the lotus, followed by spells pronounced by several persons for the protection of such persons from all ills. So these are incantations or mantras or phrases that supposedly have magical powers. Honestly, I had never gotten into this aspect of the lotus back in the day when I was studying it, but for the purpose of completion, I have included a recitation of excerpts from this chapter, which basically is intended to communicate the power of this particular text, this particular scripture, this particular sutra. And then in chapter 27, more about the deeds of certain bodhisattvas in previous incarnations. And this is a chapter that talks about a family, a royal family, wherein there was a king and a queen and 2 sons, and the 2 sons got turned on to Buddhism and the Lotus Sutra in particular and got exposed to it, but their father was not a Buddhist believer, and so the whole story is, with the mother's encouragement, the sons prompt the father to expose himself to the Buddha Dharma, and of course he becomes a convert, and they all go on to follow the Buddha path. And then finally, in the last chapter of the Lotus Sutra, at least in most translations, we have Samantabhadra vowing to be the protector of all who extol the lotus, and of all who appeal to him for help. The Buddha then entrusts the lotus to him, once more dwelling on the merit which shall accrue to those who extol this scripture, as well as the afflictions that shall attend all who harm such persons. And this, to me, is a very meaningful chapter, because one of the key aspects of the symbolism of Samantabhadra, who rides the white elephant, the great bodhisattva of universal virtue, is that he protects those who read, recite, and nurture and protect the sutra of the lotus flower of the wonderful law. And you'll see perhaps that in the context of the threefold Lotus Sutra, we saw that the first of the 3 was the Sutra of Innumerable Meanings, the second and main sutra was the Lotus Sutra, and then there's a third sutra, and that is a sutra regarding a visualization of Samantabhadra. And I may or may not do some recitation from that, but you'll find that complete third of the threefold sutra in the version called the Threefold Lotus Sutra and in the Gene Reeves translation version of the Lotus Sutra.